In a world where headlines race faster than the truth, where viral stories ignite flames of outrage before facts even take form, we find ourselves once again at the edge of chaos and confusion. Today's story is no ordinary headline. It speaks of fire in the skies. 7 Israeli fighter jets shot down over Syria. But in the smoke of speculation, what remains hidden is the truth. Now, I want you to breathe it slow and listen, because what you're about to hear isn't just about missiles and warplanes. It's about the game behind the game, the silence behind the sound, the question that lingers long after the news stops scrolling. What really happened? And who wants you to believe otherwise? The origin and spread of the viral claim about the downed jets, media manipulation and psychological warfare in modern conflict, official responses from Israel, Syria, and international observers, strategic implications for Middle Eastern geopolitics and military balance. The deeper question, why misinformation thrives in times of war. The claim that 7 Israeli fighter jets were shot down over Syria spread like wildfire across social media platforms and alternative news outlets. It originated from unverified sources that quickly gained traction, amplified by dramatic footage of burning wreckage and loud assertions of Syrian military success. These posts often lack timestamps, geolocation, or any credible attribution, yet they evoked emotional reactions that made them viral. Within hours, the narrative was shared by thousands, repeated by commentators, and even picked up by smaller media networks. The problem wasn't just the speed of its spread. It was the way the story echoed deeper sentiments of political bias, mistrust, and ideological division. Many users accepted it without scrutiny, not because of the evidence, but because it aligned what they wanted to believe. Meanwhile, reputable outlets held back, citing a lack of confirmation. But in today's information battlefield, silence is often interpreted as complicity. As the story evolved, doctored videos and recycled war images from previous years were repackaged to support the narrative. Accounts that previously posted fabricated stories were among the loudest voices. This moment became yet another example of how digital virality can override truth, and how the hunger for shocking headlines often drowns the patient pursuit of facts. In today's world, wars are no longer fought only with bombs and bullets. They are fought with information, perception, and influence. The viral claim that Israeli jets were shot down over Syria didn't just emerge from a vacuum. It was part of a broader landscape of media manipulation and psychological warfare. In modern conflicts, information is a weapon just as powerful as any missile. The way news is framed, the timing of its release, and the emotional weight it can influence public opinion, alter diplomatic postures, and shift the momentum on the ground without a single shot being fired. Governments, intelligence agencies, and even non-state actors understand this well. They seed narratives to achieve strategic goals, undermining enemy morale, rallying domestic support, or misleading international observers. In the case of this story, the goal may not have been to deceive forever, but to stir confusion long enough to gain an edge. Once a narrative takes hold, it becomes incredibly difficult to contain. People share stories not because they're true, but because they're compelling. In emotionally charged regions like the Middle East, such content taps into deep-seated beliefs and traumas, making it even more potent. Psychological operations, or PSYOPs, are now digital by default. Fake accounts, edited videos, and staged footage create an illusion of authenticity. The line between truth and fiction is deliberately blurred. And once people take sides, they often become immune to correction, rejecting any evidence that contradicts what they've already accepted. This manipulation isn't always obvious, and that's what makes it so dangerous. The real battlefield isn't always out there in the desert sky. It's in the minds of millions watching through their screens, forming opinions, casting judgments, and deciding who to trust in a world designed to keep them divided and misinformed. When the news of 7 Israeli fighter jets allegedly being shot down over Syria began to spread, the official responses were swift, measured, and deeply telling. Israel's defense establishment categorically denied the reports, stating that no such incident occurred and that all aircraft were accounted for. Israeli military channels emphasized the importance of relying on verified sources and dismissed the circulating videos and images as either outdated or manipulated. Their tone wasn't just defensive. It was calculated, seeking to maintain a sense of control and avoid escalation, especially in such a tense regional climate. Syria's side painted a different picture. While not officially confirming the downing of all 7 jets, some Syrian-aligned media outlets hinted at successful air defense actions, framing it as a significant victory against Israeli aggression. State television replayed footage of missiles being launched, accompanied by patriotic music and bold claims, though without verifiable evidence, connecting them to the viral reports. This ambiguity, neither a full denial nor confirmation, left room for speculation and fueled the narrative further, particularly among audiences already critical of Israel. Internationally, most credible observers and defense analysts expressed skepticism. Organizations that monitor airspace activity, such as the Russian Ministry of Defense and independent watchdog groups, found no credible radar data or flight logs to support the claim. Western intelligence circles remain silent, likely wary of becoming entangled in unverified speculation. The lack of consensus across nations highlighted how fragmented and politically sensitive information becomes during conflict. These mixed signals underscore the complexity of truth in wartime. Each actor crafts its version of reality, shaped by strategy, public image, and geopolitical goals. What remains absent is a neutral voice, one that speaks purely from fact, stripped of agenda. In such a vacuum, perception becomes reality, and official responses, no matter how clear, struggle to contain the storm. The alleged downing of 7 Israeli fighter jets over Syria, regardless of its truthfulness, had immediate implications for the strategic landscape of the Middle East. Even unverified, such claims send ripples across military alliances, diplomatic dialogues, and public sentiment. The mere idea that Syrian air defenses could neutralize advanced Israeli aircraft challenges assumptions about regional power dynamics. It raises questions about the effectiveness of Israeli air superiority, long considered one of the cornerstones of its defense doctrine. If Syria or any of its allies has improved its anti-air capabilities to the point of threatening Israeli jets, it alters the calculus not only for Israel, but for every actor operating in the region. Iran, a close ally of Syria, would interpret such a narrative as a morale booster and strategic gain. It reinforces its image as part of a resistance axis capable of pushing back against technologically superior forces. This perception, true or not, can embolden proxy groups and fuel new rounds of confrontation. For Israel, even unverified threats can prompt recalibrations, changes in air patrol routes, electronic countermeasure deployments, or heightened diplomatic engagement with powers like the United States and Russia. For Russia, which maintains a military presence in Syria, these developments pose a delicate balancing act. Moscow aims to support the Assad regime while avoiding direct confrontation with Israel. Claims like this put that balance at risk and may pressure Russia to increase its mediation efforts behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Gulf states and other Arab nations watch closely, recalculating their alliances and security partnerships. In the fog of war, perception often outweighs precision. A single viral claim, true or false, can sway policy, trigger retaliation, or alter strategic behavior. This event reminded the world that in the Middle East, information is a weapon, and every headline can become a battlefield. A misinformation thrives in times of war because cause creates the perfect environment for confusion, emotional manipulation, and narrative control. In conflict zones, people are desperate for clarity, but they're often left with fragments. Images without context, claims without sources, and stories shaped by agenda rather than accuracy. In that uncertainty, falsehoods can spread faster and farther than verified facts. The claim that 7 Israeli jets were shot down over Syria captured global attention, not because it was proven, but because it was dramatic, sensational, and aligned with existing tensions and expectations. It offered an emotionally satisfying storyline to some, an apparent shift in power, a symbolic victory, a blow to a dominant force. But the deeper reason misinformation survives is because it doesn't just travel through data, it travels through belief. People tend to share information that confirms what they already think or feel. In polarized regions like the Middle East, where distrust runs deep and alliances are fragile, every piece of news is interpreted through a lens of suspicion. In such an environment, misinformation isn't just an accident. It's a strategy. It's deployed deliberately to test reactions, to bait responses, or to lay groundwork for future operations. Moreover, digital platforms have amplified the problem. Algorithms reward engagement, not accuracy. A lie that provokes outrage is more profitable than a truth that brings clarity. Once a false narrative gains momentum, correcting it becomes nearly impossible. The correction reaches fewer people, and those it does reach often reject it as part of the cover-up. In war, every side wants to be seen as strong, righteous, and victorious. Misinformation helps construct that image. It's not just a consequence of war. It's a weapon of war. And until the value of truth outweighs the utility of lies, this pattern will keep repeating with devastating consequences. In the end, what we're left with is not just a question whether 7 Israeli fighter jets were truly shot down over Syria. It's a deeper reckoning with how we, as a global society, consume truth in the age of instant information and digital warfare. This story, like so many before it, reminds us that in times of tension, facts are the first casualties. And perception becomes the battleground where nations rise, fall, and recalibrate their power. The truth isn't always dramatic. It isn't always loud. And it certainly doesn't always trend. But it matters more than ever. Because when lies go unchecked, they don't just distort headlines. They shape minds, deepen divisions, and ignite consequences far beyond the screens we hold in our hands. Governments, media, and citizens alike have a role to play. Not in blindly accepting or dismissing, but in questioning, investigating, and seeking clarity beyond the noise. So as the dust settles around this viral claim, we're reminded that the most important defense isn't in the sky. It's in our ability to think critically, to challenge what we hear, and to demand evidence in a world flooded with emotion and deception. Because in the silence between headliness, in the space where certainty fades, that's where truth waits. And only those willing to look beyond the surface will ever find it.